Gravitas tells you stories which others won't. And tonight we will tell you about this new strategic map that is being drawn.
They say your enemy's enemy is your friend. Is that the foundation of the new defense bridge between India and America?
This is what separates us from others who claim to be telling you global stories that matter. In the last 3 days, WION has been traveling across Syria. You are in Latakia city right now. Tell us, what is the situation on ground? At Gravitas, we don't just tell you stories from selected countries from around the world.
2 years since the Myanmar military coup, the people of Myanmar continue to live in a nightmare.
Because it does not suit their propaganda, or because they are too scared to speak truth to power.
The stress of our world can take a toll on our physical and emotional health. Here, in New York's Catskill Mountains, lies a luxurious place of healing called WION Wellness Center. The WION Wellness Center provides 500,000 square feet of natural methods to manage diabetes, hypertension, chronic pain, obesity, depression, anxiety, and other conditions. We use the traditions of centuries-old natural science from India, yoga, Ayurveda, acupuncture, and naturopathy in personalized programs that help you take charge of your own health. A minimum 5-day stay is recommended for best results. Book now at yo1.com.
Hello, I'm Katie Pilbeam, coming to you from London for the live broadcast bulletin.
The top stories for today. WION brings you all the updates from a 2-day informal meeting of NATO foreign ministers in Oslo. UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak is set to meet Joe Biden next week in Washington, but talks on free trade deal are off the table. As Greece's Education Ministry reports a major cyber attack, focus on the vulnerability of global digital infrastructure. Tune in at these times on WION World is One.
Hello and welcome to WION World is One, broadcasting live from the British capital this hour. You're with me, Katie Pilbeam. Let's get to the headlines. Beijing blames US provocation in the incident involving a Chinese plane crossing in front of an American surveillance aircraft. Beijing says the act was in response to Washington's frequent sending of ships and planes to conduct close surveillance in the South China Sea. Sudanese army suspends its participation in ceasefire talks with its parliamentary foes. The army accuses the rebels of not having implemented the provisions of a short-term ceasefire that was brokered by US Saudi Arabia. NATO foreign ministers meet in Norway for informal discussions. The 2-day meet has begun and it's set to discuss Sweden's membership bid, Russia-Ukraine war, and Chinese aggression in the Indo-Pacific. A Ukrainian drone sparked fire at an oil refinery in southern Russia, and shelling hit a Russian town close to the border for the 3rd time in a week, damaging buildings and vehicles and injuring 4, claims Russian officials. India's defence exports reach an all-time high of nearly 16,000 crores. It's a 23-fold increase in the span of 9 years. Kosovo Tennis Federation accuses Serbian Novak Djokovic of aggravating an already tense situation. This after the world number 3 wrote that Kosovo is the heart of Serbia on a camera lens following his first round win at the French Open. And we begin in Norway today. A 2-day informal meeting of NATO foreign ministers has begun in Oslo. US Secretary of State Antony Blinken, who is in Sweden, issued a joint press conference with the Swedish Prime Minister regarding the Nordic nations' bid to join NATO, which is being stalled by Turkey. Well, Biden urged Turkey to immediately finalise Sweden's accession to NATO. He said Stockholm has already taken significant steps to address Ankara's objections to its membership.
Focused attention on some of its security concerns that both Sweden and Finland have taken remarkable steps to address, important ones. So I think it's to Turkey's credit that it's been able to focus all of the alliance on some of these concerns, but it's to Sweden's credit, as well as Finland's credit, that they've taken concrete action to address those concerns. From the perspective of the United States, the time is now to finalize Sweden's accession.
Well, NATO General Secretary Jens Stoltenberg is chairing the meeting. Ahead of the NATO informal meet, Stoltenberg said a decision on Sweden joining the alliance is absolutely possible before the July summit.
By the Vilnius summit, because there is a window now. As we don't have any certainty, and of course we speak about sovereign decisions by national parliaments to make the decisions on ratification. My message is that it is within reach. It's possible to have Sweden as a full member by the Vilnius summit, because there is a window now, especially after the Turkish elections and now with the Turkish parliament being constituted. Of course it is possible.
Well, Turkey and Hungary are the only NATO countries that are yet to ratify Sweden's membership. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan was re-elected on Sunday for another 5-year term. He's accused Sweden of harbouring especially members of the Kurdistan Workers' Party, whom Turkey considers terrorist. Well, Stoltenberg said he was in constant contact with Turkish authorities to try to get the final obstacles to Sweden's accession lifted. On the other hand, Norway's Deputy Foreign Minister highlighted the significance of the 2-day meeting. She said Russia's aggression in Ukraine has made Norway and NATO relationship more important than ever. According to Norway's Deputy Foreign Minister, Norway shares a border with Russia, so Russia's illegal invasion of Ukraine has really changed the security policy situation for them as a country. Well, the US military recently released a video of a Chinese jet performing what Washington claimed was an unnecessary aggressive maneuver near a Reese aircraft. Washington claims that this caused turbulence to the US aircraft. The escalating Chinese aggression in the Indo-Pacific is also likely to be discussed in this 2-day informal meeting event. Well, for more, earlier, our principal diplomatic correspondent, Sidan Sybil, sent us this report from Oslo.
Oslo is all set to host the NATO foreign ministers for an informal session, even as the ongoing conflict in Ukraine continues for over 1 year. We know that on the table will be issues like forming a consensus and perhaps putting a brave front in front of the global community, even as the conflict rages on for over 1 year. There are, of course, worries that the conflict might have a spillover effect with recent drone attacks in Russia and retaliatory strikes by the Russian side as well. But essentially, we know that on the table will be issues like membership for Sweden for the NATO grouping. There has been opposition by Turkey and Hungary, and with the re-election of Erdogan, the focus will be on how this can be reversed. Also, the Chinese aggressive actions in the Indo-Pacific will be another key aspect of the two-day meeting, which will begin here in Oslo in a few hours from now. Sudhan Subal for WION in Oslo, Norway.
Moving on to the situation in Kosovo now, the NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg has announced the deployment of 700 additional troops to Kosovo. This the day after clashes in the Kosovan city of Zvikan left 30 NATO peacekeepers and 52 Serbian demonstrators injured. Well, Stoltenberg, who made the announcement ahead of a NATO foreign ministers meeting in the Norwegian capital of Oslo, which is now underway. Well, speaking alongside the Norwegian Prime Minister, he said this.
KFOR, the NATO forces, will take all necessary actions to maintain a safe and secure environment for all citizens in Kosovo. And we will continue to act impartially in line with our United Nations mandate. We have decided to deploy 700 more troops from the Operational Reserve Force for Western Balkans, and to put an additional battalion of reserve forces on higher readiness so they can also be deployed if needed.
Well, unrest in the region has intensified ever since Albanian mayors took office in northern parts of Kosovo, an area with a Serbian majority. The Serb community boycotted mayoral elections earlier in April with a meagre turnout of 3.5%. Kosovo's Prime Minister alleged the involvement of far-right Serbian groups in inciting the violent clashes that left the 30 NATO peacekeepers and 52 Serbian protesters injured.
Yesterday, it was finally proven to all of us who we are up against. Right-wing extremist groups donning masks who vandalize, attack, burn everything that they do not consider Serbian, and who exalt nationalistic and chauvinistic symbols such as the cross with 4 S's and the Z of Russian aggression in Ukraine. Extremists and militias have their own names. They are not the people.
Well, Serbian President Aleksandar Vučić has placed the army on a full combat alert at the border following the clashes. NATO troops stationed in Zvikan, the city where the clashes took place, have cordoned off the municipal buildings in the city to curb further violence. Well, protesters, they still remain on the site, though. The former mayor of the city has claimed that Serbians will continue protesting until their demands are met.
I wanted to tell the people that today we will stay here until 4 p.m. and that in the coming days we will gather every day from 7 to 7:30 a.m. in increasing numbers until our demands are met. You saw and heard our demands yesterday. The withdrawal of the ROSU special units from the Kosovo police and from the buildings of municipalities with a Serbian majority, and in general from the north of Kosovo.
Well, these recent tensions, they stem from Kosovo's declaration of independence from Serbia in 2008, a move widely rejected by the Serbian community in the region. Ethnic Albanians make up 90% of Kosovo's population. Serbs have demanded the creation of autonomous municipalities in northern Kosovo since 2013. Well, the Serbian community still remains this demand, insisting a deal should be struck with Kosovan authorities, with observers from the European Union brokering the deal. British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak is all set to meet the US President Joe Biden next week. The prime focus of the meeting is improving economic ties and sustaining military aid to Ukraine in its conflict with Russia. But Sunak's office confirmed there will be no talks of a free trade deal. This will be Sunak's first visit to the White House ever since he became the Prime Minister. His aim is to forge better relationships with the US and businesses. After Britain's exit from the EU trading bloc in 2020, Sunak said that the aim is to reduce trade barriers between the two nations, especially focusing on US states like North Carolina, South Carolina and Indiana. Well, Britain's relationship with the United States is built on defence, cultural, intelligence and economic ties. This relationship has strengthened after both countries have been actively involved in supporting Ukraine. Sunak accepted Biden's invitation to visit the White House in March. The top leaders met in San Diego to inaugurate the next phase of a submarine alliance between the United States, Britain and Australia. That one is known as AUKUS. Well, for more on what could potentially be discussed at this next meeting, it will be a huge event. Our London correspondent, Alex Isat, has been following this situation and sent us this report.
Well, it wasn't too long ago that Prime Minister Rishi Sunak and US President Joe Biden met in person. In fact, just before the coronation, when they discussed the Northern Ireland protocol going forward, as Biden had made a trip to his ancestral home. Now, back then, there was discussions about Ukraine and going forward with the EU and what was happening, all those bits of ins and outs. And of course, they met at the G7 as well. So we understand that Rishi Sunak is heading to Washington on the 6th and 7th of this month, where he will be speaking to Biden again. Many will be asking, is this finally going to be the UK-US trade deal that many wanted? But it doesn't seem to be that case at all. In fact, the government has said that it will be off the table and not discussed. The UK-US trade deal was something that was potentially going to go through when President Trump was in charge, but Biden has no interest, it seems, in taking it forward. But it doesn't mean that the UK-US trade is off the table at all. In fact, a lot of states individually trade with the UK, and there are more that are going to be opening up. So Rishi Sunak heading over to the States is more of a case of showing the people who he is and potentially what the UK can do. And don't forget as well, we do have an election coming up next year. So the more that Rishi Sunak can embed himself into a culture of politics within the US, it may show the UK public that he's looking for their greater future aspects and not just a here and now. But once again, many will be asking, how is he going to get there? They'll probably look to see what form of transport he's taking, as he has been used to taking helicopters or private jets. And right now, in the cost of living crisis, that will be sneered upon. But we will see what he comes back with. We do know they will be definitely talking about Ukraine and ongoing deals with the armed forces. But what else? Well, we'll just have to wait and see. This is Alex Isat reporting from London for WION. World is One.
The UK government has been accused of hiding information from the COVID inquiry panel. Government officials have reportedly told the panel that they don't have former Prime Minister Boris Johnson's pandemic diary entries and WhatsApp chats. Well, for days, the Cabinet Office has been refusing to provide the material to the inquiry panel. But now it's claiming it does not have WhatsApp messages or 24 notebooks in its ownership. Well, this comes even as the Cabinet Office is still considering legal action themselves in order to prevent the material being handed over to the official inquiry. However, allies of the former Prime Minister claim Johnson has provided all the access to the material to government-appointed lawyers. Well, according to a spokesperson, Johnson has no objection to the disclosure of the material to the inquiry panel, while adding the decision to reveal the requested documents is with the Cabinet Office. The opposition Labour Party says the situation is a cover-up by the Tory government, while Liberal Democrats have criticised the behaviour of the Tories towards COVID scrutiny. Well, all of this comes ahead of an expected meeting between the UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak and Johnson. The meeting will take place later this week. This will also give Johnson an opportunity to present his side before Sunak does. Meanwhile, Johnson loyalists believe that he is a victim of a political witch hunt, which is aimed at preventing his return to number 10 in the future. But even after several political scandals and allegations, Johnson still remains one of the most recognisable figures in British politics, as some senior Conservatives still claim Johnson is their best hope of retaining power. In recent days, there's been a surge in cyber attacks, raising concerns about the vulnerability of digital infrastructure worldwide. Well, this time, Greece's education minister has reported a major cyber attack, and it's being described as the most extensive in the country's history. Well, the attacks specifically targeted a central high school examination platform. These attempts, known as distributed denial of service, or DDoS attacks as they're known, overwhelmed the platform and caused disruptions for 2 consecutive days. Well, according to the ministry, computers from 114 countries were involved in the attack. This resulted in outages and delays during the high school exams. Fortunately, though, the system was not completely incapacitated. In response to these attacks, a judicial investigation has been initiated by a Supreme Court prosecutor with assistance from the police's cybercrime division. Well, the Education Ministry stated that this attack was the most significant ever launched against Greek public or government organisations. Now, in Greece, end-of-year high school exams are conducted online through a platform called the Subject Bank. Now, this platform, it ensures a consistent and a standardised examination process across the country. However, due to the outages caused by this incident, students had to wait for hours in their classrooms before the exams could even begin. The situation also led to a political spat following an inconclusive general election held earlier in the month. Okay, let's talk about entertainment now. Take a look at the top stories from the world of showbiz.
Disney legend Ming-Na Wen was honoured with a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. Wen, who starred as Mulan, the warrior princess in the 1998 Disney movie of the same name, used the moment to address the current writer's strike. She said, and I'm quoting here, "I have to say something, a real quick word about words. They come from writers. Without writers, there are no stories, and therefore no Hollywood," unquote. The actor was joined by her family along with her Joy Luck Club co-stars. The movie Chevalier is already playing in the theatres in the US. There are still areas of the world that don't have it yet. The cast of the movie stepped out for a gala screening of the movie in London. Chevalier is based on the life of the French-Caribbean musician José Boulogne. Chevalier de Saint Georges, played by Kelvin Harrison Jr. The drama follows the musician's rise to fame amidst his fight against racism. Cousin duo Kendrick Lamar and Baby Keem have released a new collaboration, The Hillbillies. The video of the song is shot entirely on VHS rapper Tyler. The creator also makes a cameo in the montage to tease the return of his music festival, Camp Flog Gnaw. Although the lineup for Camp Flog Gnaw hasn't been officially announced, the online spectators are hoping Tyler's cameo means that Lamar and Keem will both play at the 2023 festival.
Okay, let's get to the sport now. And Manchester United's preparation for the FA Cup have been hit by an injury to striker Anthony Martial. And the Frenchman has been ruled out of the Saturday derby against Manchester City after suffering a hamstring injury during their 2-1 win over Fulham last week. Well, Martial has struggled with injuries all season and has been restricted to 29 appearances in all comp, already without the services of Lisandro Martinez and Marcel Sabitzer. But there is hope that the Brazilian winger Anthony will be fit despite him being stretchered off during the 4-1 win over Chelsea last week. Well, United will travel to Wembley, not only aiming to secure a domestic double after winning the EFL Cup, but also to stop the champions in their bid to clinch a treble. United are the only English team to win the Premier League, Champions League and the FA Cup. And that was in 1999, and that's called the treble. Thank you so much indeed for watching WION with me, Katie, from London this hour. Stay with the channel for more international headlines shortly.
WION.
Gravitas tells you stories which others won't. And tonight we will tell you about this new strategic map that is being drawn.
They say your enemy's enemy is your friend. Is that the foundation of the new defense bridge between India and America?
This is what separates us from others who claim to be telling you global stories that matter. In the last 3 days, WION has been traveling across Syria. You are in Latakia city right now. Tell us, what is the situation on ground? At Gravitas, we don't just tell you stories from selected countries from around the world.
2 years since the Myanmar military coup, the people of Myanmar continue to live in a nightmare.
Because it does not suit their propaganda, or because they are too scared to speak truth to power.
The stress of our world can take a toll on our physical and emotional health. Here, in New York's Catskill Mountains, lies a luxurious place of healing called WION Wellness Center. The WION Wellness Center provides 500,000 square feet of natural methods to manage diabetes, hypertension, chronic pain, obesity, depression, anxiety, and other conditions. We use the traditions of centuries-old natural science from India, yoga, Ayurveda, acupuncture, and naturopathy in personalized programs that help you take charge of your own health. A minimum 5-day stay is recommended for best results. Book now at YoOne.com